You're listening to the Public Health Entrepreneurs Podcast with your host, Dr. Charlotte Huntley. Greetings, everyone, and thank you for joining me on this episode. Take a deep breath and relax for a moment because I'm going to share a story with you, and I hope that it inspires you to take some sort of action for yourself. Now, on this podcast, we discuss topics that fall at this intersection of public health and entrepreneurship. I'm a public health entrepreneur, and I've been, serving public health and healthcare for well over 20 years. A lot of experience in a lot of different settings. And right now, I lead a consulting firm. We focus on the epidemiology. We sort of niche into epidemiology. That is my background. We really help the organizations, our clients, which are these large BIPOC organizations. We help them communicate their information to the communities that they serve in plain language. You all know that sometimes epidemiologists can speak their own language, and it's not okay for us to get lost in our own jargon and not be able to communicate to our colleagues and our partners in the communities that we really are passionate about serving. So that goes not just for epidemiologists, but for all of us. In public health, we can, understand each other, but sometimes even within our own colleagues under this umbrella, it's a little difficult sometimes to understand exactly what's happening. Everyone's got their own little jargon and language. And then we think about our communities and, we really need to be communicating clearly and making sure that they're understanding the data, the information, and they're a part of the whole process. So that's where we focus, supporting those large BIPOC organizations. Now, I say all of that because you may or may not be familiar with what I do. But as you can imagine, because if you're listening to this, you're likely an entrepreneur or you're interested in this journey and this path. We wear many hats and there are a lot of responsibilities. And sometimes the exciting part is that we have the freedom and the flexibility to create our own way. It's wonderful, but at the same time, it can be a challenge because we have to think of everything and create everything, whereas as an employee, it's provided for us or created for us. We do this down to the most simple terms that we don't really consider sometimes. And this can be exhausting. Even if you're enjoying it, it can still be exhausting. Mentally exhausting, sometimes emotionally exhausting. There's just so much that we need to figure out and put together and organize as business owners and consultants. And yes, it is very rewarding and the payoff is great, but it comes at, a bit of a cost. So what I really want to focus on in this little episode that was inspired by a recent activity of mine is I really want to encourage you to breathe, to pause and take a breath. And not just because you feel overwhelmed and tired, but way before you feel that way. Like consistently do this for yourself. It is not even to say it's important. It's almost vital. It's something that we need to move in that direction. So sometimes we do a really good job of consistently putting those items, those, little trips or breaks on our schedule. And sometimes we are getting ready to go on vacation and we're just drained. So that happened to me recently. A lot has been going on in the business, a lot of really good things, but it's, all the good things can be very draining. So by the time when that happens, you get to vacation mode and you have to spend like a day or two just unwinding and settling down. And then you've only got a little bit of time before you got to wrap it all up and come back home, right? So I just really want to encourage you to find those moments, create those moments on a regular basis to stay creative. And in order to do that, you need to unplug, change your environment, change your setting, have that space to just breathe and to be present and to enjoy some quiet time, some reflecting time so that you can stay productive and moving forward and leading your business and having those inspiring, bright, wonderful ideas. So I do this really pretty well, but lately I've been doing it so much better. And I recently had a conversation with a friend of mine that kind of inspired this because I was sharing about my trip. I absolutely love going to the mountains. And where I live, it is one of the reasons 20 years ago, the big selling point for me coming here was the fact that I could get to the mountains within, 2.5 to 3 hours. I could get to either the beach or the mountains. And that's wonderful. So I do spend a lot of time retreating back to the mountains. I'm talking about the Smoky Mountains. They're beautiful and gorgeous. And there's so much to discover every time. You can travel the same part of the parkway up in the mountains over and over and over, and you'll find something new every single time you go there, or you go through, different seasons of the year and you experience something different. We took some time and went there, and it was every time we go, we do something a little different, and it's a whole different experience. And I've been doing this for years, but there was a moment where my husband found this train ride. It's like a tour. And we spent about 4 hours all together. It was about 4 hours, but we went so many, miles along the mountainside, through the mountains, beautiful views. And we had a guide that gave us all these like fun facts about the land and the plants that we saw and the lakes that were, there, and just the wildlife. And so we traveled like an hour and a half or so out. And then we stopped and we had time to get out. There was a small little town. There's like whitewater rafting in this community. It's really known for that. So we got to walk around and do some shopping and exploring. And then we got back on the train and finished the tour. It was just breathtaking. And I remember sitting in the car, like looking out the window and, just absorbing all the beauty. And it just seemed like idea after idea was just kind of dropping into my mind, or clarity on things that I've been thinking about for a while. And all of a sudden it was crystal clear. And I really believe that something magical happens when you change your environment and you step away from what is normally routine, even if it's just for a few hours. It's just amazing what it can do to reset your mind. And you have to take care of yourself in this way. Again, not waiting to when you're exhausted. I'm not saying you have to take off and travel to the mountains to get this experience. But this experience reminded me of the times when sometimes I have on my calendar, I put blocks of time and it's white space. I call it CEO time. And it's just so that I'm not meeting with clients directly. I'm not having any meetings actually, but that time, sometimes I will sit in the office with my whiteboard and I just get ideas that have been in my head, just get them all out so that I can rest my brain a bit instead of carrying all those thoughts in there and decide what to do with it. Or I think about where the company is going or what we need to do differently. But sometimes I may go hiking. I love hiking. We have a lot of parks that are not that far from where I live. So I can take a block of time, drive to a park and hike for, maybe a couple of miles, and just changing my environment in that setting like that. It provides so much clarity. And I'm not going out there to think about my business. I go out there to just be quiet. Sometimes I don't even listen to audibles or podcasts. I have no earbuds. I'm just out there walking and being, aware of the beautiful plants and flowers, and not so much the creatures, because the creatures I meet when I'm on a hike are not the ones that I'm excited to meet. But I do enjoy being in that setting. And then while I'm there, I just get sometimes just the clarity happens. So I'm always prepared if I need to take a note of something that all of a sudden is really crystal clear, makes sense to me. But it's just refreshing. I get ideas about what I need to do, or sometimes I simply just get to enjoy the quiet and listening to the sounds and just everything that I'm able to take in. So I say that because that works for me. So what is it for you? What activity, what is it that gets you, where do you do a change of environment and that helps you? Like, is your place the mountains, or going to the beach, walking on the beach for a while, or sometimes it's watching a show or something on TV that you don't normally watch, just so your mind's not occupied with all these other things. What is it that you do to help you reset? And I don't mean when you're already exhausted, or maybe you start thinking of that way. When you're exhausted, what is it you do? And then we can backtrack, and maybe it's you take some spa time. So instead of waiting until you're exhausted, maybe you decide that once a month or once every 2 weeks, I'm just going to schedule some spa time. What is it that you do that really helps you to reset? And I'm encouraging you to first identify that and then to schedule that. If you're like me, I honor what's on my calendar. If I schedule that time, then it will likely happen. If I just say, okay, I'm going to do that, then it may or may not happen. So whatever it is that you think about it first. What is that activity? And then plan for it. So whatever it is that you can be held accountable for, maybe it's a member on your team that you have set that schedule for you, or a spouse or a friend or someone that you can partner with and help, to help you be accountable for the thing that you're going to do. Maybe it's a book that you're going to read and you decide to, whatever it is, just decide on what it is, put some accountability in place. Maybe it's someone that you say, hey, this is what I'm planning to do. Ask me about this next week. Or, somebody that will just automatically do it because you've told them they're going to check in on you. But do that for yourself. And I'm focusing all of this on you, the entrepreneur, because I don't want you to burn out. I don't want you to be exhausted. And you may also think that, I don't have the time. I need to, have this client work. Create the space and the time for yourself. Prioritize taking care of yourself because it will help you serve your clients so much better. You'll come back refreshed, renewed, and able to do so much more than you can ever do by pushing yourself to the limits. So this is Dr. Huntley in your ear trying to look out for you. And I encourage you to make a plan for yourself and be accountable for what you're going to do to take care of yourself, to refresh and renew. Change your environment it's a great way to do that so that you can prevent, in other words, I want you to do this way before you need to do it. If you feel like you need to do it, then you probably waited too long. So do it before you feel like you need to do it. Does that make sense? I hope so. There's so many more examples I could think of, but I don't want you to get overwhelmed thinking, well, now I've got to plan time to get away. And I've got to, all the reasons that are popping up in your mind for how you can't get away. I'm going to give you a few easy buttons here. Sometimes changing your environment can be taking a different route home on your commute, or maybe driving to the next town over and grabbing lunch or coffee. It doesn't have to be really a big vacation adventure. It could be as simple as that. And sometimes that's all you need. Sometimes instead of working in your office in your home, maybe you decide to go down the coffee shop and you work for an hour. Or, there's a lot of ways that you can create to change your environment. And I just encourage you to do so. Changing the environment really helps. But if you can, the ultimate idea is to be able to unplug for that while. So I really don't want you to necessarily go somewhere else and work. That's one thing. I really want you to unplug from work. And maybe you just decide, I'm going to walk in. Maybe if you always walk your neighborhood, go to a different neighborhood or go to a park instead of your neighborhood. So there are a lot of things you can do. You don't have to make it a big, you don't have to find your way to the Smoky Mountains in order to feel like you're getting a reset. There are a lot of things. If you start to feel inspired by a few ideas that I've shared, then maybe you can start adding to that. Maybe spend 5 more minutes and brainstorm a few ideas and then put it into action. But I'd love to hear from you. What is it that helps you reset? What did you decide to do? What's your inspiration from this conversation? I'd love to hear from you. So feel free to share your thoughts with us on any of our social media posts, or you can definitely reach out to us through our website, publichealthentrepreneurs.com. And one more thing before I wrap up, please share this episode with a friend, preferably another entrepreneur that is working really hard and could use a little, whisper in their ear or tap on their shoulder to remind them to take care of themselves. Until next time, all of you, I appreciate you, every last one of you, for listening to these episodes. So until next time, have a fantastic rest of your day. Thank you for listening. Visit publichealthentrepreneurs.com to learn more.